Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's You Don't Know What You Don't Know session, brought to you by 365 in 365. Today, I've got Roland on the call, and we're also got Tristan Delaney from support joining us, and we're covering off some pretty exciting stuff today. So, even now, if you're sitting around and someone should be in from your office on the call, but we are recording the call and we'll be sharing it out as well. And we're covering off probably the most hottest topics that we have in Office 365, where we're talking about document management, especially using SharePoint Online and OneDrive for Business. So, Roland, welcome. Good morning, and welcome along today.
Thank you very much, Trevor. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you, everybody, for joining us on the call this morning. Yes, SharePoint, OneDrive, document management in Office 365. Trev, you're right. It is an exciting topic, and it's something that I think people get confused with as to which tool to use when they're trying to manage their content in the cloud, when to use SharePoint for file management, when to use OneDrive for business, when to use other document management tools. So it is a hot topic, and it's one of the number one calls on our service desk. So what we've done this morning, as Trevor said, is we brought the magic that is Mr. Tristan Delaney onto the call. And Tristan's been running the service desk for 4 or 5 years now, Tristan?
Thanks, Roland. Not quite 4 years, but yeah, about 3.5.
3.5, and I mean, the volume of calls, what are we looking at here? You're getting a lot of calls, and this seems to be one of your hot topics on the service desk?
Seems to be one of the big pain points for customers, and probably one of the most misunderstood aspects of cloud computing in general.
Yeah, I mean, map network drives and that have been around for 20 plus years. And the server message block technology hasn't changed that much, and most people are used to their H drive or their Z drive. So I think this is a shift in where they have to store content and how they need to collaborate. So this is a very important component of the modern workplace, to be able to access your content no matter what your physical location or which device you're currently connected on. So, Tristan, I'm going to hand... Oh, sorry, Trev?
I just was going to say, one of the things, especially when I'm training people on, and we're doing the modern practice training, and we're talking about our template managers and so forth, is that area that people have that personal space in OneDrive and OneDrive for Business, and they get so confused as to when they should be having things in OneDrive for Business, and they do get a bit lazy with it, Tristan. I think that's the word you say, is that, and they tend to leave things and use OneDrive for Business probably a little bit too much. That's sort of where we tend to get a lot of our problems with. Is that right?
Yeah, look, everyone will always find the path of least resistance, and sometimes the path of least resistance is not the best path for the business. So we're going to talk about that today as well.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to just jump to the next slide, and probably Tristan, and Roland, I'll get you. Maybe Tristan, if you could just talk about this slide and what we're talking about here.
We're looking at Office 365 as a whole. Office 365 is a cloud service, a set of cloud services provided by Microsoft. You can see down the bottom the core functionality that lives in the cloud, Microsoft Exchange, providing mail and collaboration services. SharePoint, which is so much more than a document management system. This is an older slide, so Link is now called Skype for Business. And also we've got Yammer on the right, which if you had joined us last week, you would have heard Roland talking about in a great depth. On top of that, we have those methods of accessing Office 365, which we're going to dig into today.
So a lot of people, is it wrong to say that OneDrive is a part of Office 365, SharePoint's a part of Office 365. All of these are a part of Office 365, but I think some people get a bit confused and think that OneDrive is a part of SharePoint, and I think that might create a bit of that confusion when I'm talking to people about that. What are your thoughts on that? So being able to move documents and so forth into SharePoint, and the reason why you do that.
Absolutely, it's a one of the most confusing components of SharePoint is the differentiation between the OneDrive site and the SharePoint team site, and we're going to dig a little bit deeper into that today, and hopefully shed some light on what's the best tool for the job and when.
Yep. So on this screen, we're talking about HubOne's document management. So I'll let you go through and talk about this particular slide, Tristan.
Okay, so before I do that, I'll just give a bit of background on myself and on the discussion, and
Yep.
a little bit about where we came from. My role at HubOne, I'm the support manager for HubOne, and I've been here for about 3 years. I've got a team of support staff who are dedicated to providing solutions for HubOne's clients. I just want to share a bit about what I've learned from my journey into the cloud, and specifically Office 365, and I'm going to keep it as high level as possible, but while delivering some real practical methods to improve day-to-day interaction with Office 365. HubOne Help Desk processes 1,000 tickets a month, and we're coming up on 38,000 tickets. I've read every single one of them, and I've picked up on some common threads, and that's why we're talking about what we are talking about today. I knew exactly what I wanted to talk about when HubOne asked me to do a presentation, and that's file management in Microsoft's SharePoint Online. It doesn't matter if you're an existing client of HubOne's. If you are, then you're already using SharePoint Online, which is so much more than a document management system. There's a huge amount of functionality that we're not going to talk about today. As we've already covered, SharePoint Online is a core component of 365, and it sits alongside Exchange Online, Skype, and Yammer. Target audience today, anyone who uses SharePoint Online or is thinking about it as an alternative to on-premise file servers. It's a general discussion, but I'm also really going to hyper-focus on what I know is a pain point for my customers and something that can inhibit adoption of SharePoint as a whole. Just to put it in perspective, I think let's have a think about where we all came from. If you're as old as me or Trevor or Roland, then you have spent decades doing a bunch of things exactly the same way. And one of those things that hasn't changed until recently is how you have interacted with your files. And when I say files, think Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoint presentations, text files, whatever. Since the beginning of time, you've saved your files to a shared folder on a file server. You've used these things called map drives to store all your files to some magic box in the corner of the office. The H drive, the G drive, the Z drive, whatever it was, you knew that if you opened up Windows Explorer, you could find the right drive, dig down into the appropriate subfolder, and pretty much do whatever you wanted to any file that you had access to there. And now along comes the cloud, your files have been migrated into the ether, your map drives are gone, and you're staring at a web browser, right? So who moved my cheese? And so we're going to talk about how you find your cheese again. And I think, Trevor, that's that's the source of confusion for a lot of our clients is it's just that jump from on-premise to cloud, and where do I go from here now that I've got the cloud?
I think a lot of it's to do with confidence as well, Tristan and Roland. Like when we're dealing and we're moving this change and making the change from there, people are very confident that the documents are in their on their file server.
Yep.
But it's learning to be confident that when you save something in SharePoint, it's probably more secure, it's more accessible when it's on SharePoint. And then you've got all the other features, being able to collaborate, share, work on, all of those sort of things in it at the same time. But what we get a lot of is people will go, that document, I know that document, I've seen it, it was always in this particular folder, and then I go to look for it on SharePoint and I can't find it. And that the reasons that someone may not be, the document's nearly always there. There's reasons why they can't find it, isn't it?
Yes.
And just really quickly cover off maybe some of the things that people just aren't aware of as to why a document, may not be you may not be able to see it, or you may not be able to find it. Like yesterday, we did an example. I was doing some training with a client, and we saved a document, and then we went back. So we pushed the back button to go and look for the document again, and the document had gone, and it was just a refresh of the screen was needed to bring to see for you to be able to see the document again. But it just though even those little things like that. What sort of other things do you guys see?
I think there's so much functionality in SharePoint that it's easy to lose yourself in all the different ways of doing things. And knowing, the best tool for the job is the real trick.
Mm.
And one of the things we're going to do today is we're going to talk about 3 different methods of accessing your data in SharePoint. And we're going to talk about them. We're going to demo them, show you how it's done, and we're going to find the right method in there for everyone. And it might be different for different people depending on the way they like to do things.
Well, why don't you share your screen and let's jump into it. Do you want to talk at all about this, what we've got on the screen here, or do you just want to jump straight in and start showing a few people the differences?
Yeah, we might jump straight in.
Yep.
See if I can present. Okay, just sing out when you can see my screen. Here we go.
I've got to stop presenting.
So I'm about to share my entire desktop, and I'm going to show you a few bits and pieces. Okay, let's minimize a few bits and pieces. Method 1 for interacting with SharePoint is the web browser. Every service in the Office 365 cloud is designed to be accessible through a web browser. All you need in life is a computer with a web browser, and you can do pretty much most things in Office 365. So any PC, open a web browser, portal.office.com is the only address you need. And we're in Office 365.
Unless you're like me and I can never find anything, so I set favorite bars and things like that up everywhere, so I can find myself a way because I'm a real basic user of the system, so I will put favorites in and all of those things so I can find them. Whereas Tristan and Roland and Nick and the guys in support, they know how to move around SharePoint really well.
So let's make a point of getting where we want to get, and then creating a favorite so we can navigate there quickly. So in this case, we've jumped into portal.office.com. It's the Office 365 landing page. Mine's a little bit different because I'm an admin, but this is common to everybody. Top left-hand corner, here's my tiles button. Straight away, you can see a tile for all the core functions in an Office 365. We're talking about SharePoint. Here's my SharePoint icon. We're going to navigate to SharePoint sites. Here's the list of SharePoint sites that I have access to. Normally you'd only see one. I have a few extras. We're going to ignore those. We're going to go straight to the Modern Practice portal. Hub 1 clients, you've seen this before. This should be familiar. Now I'm here. I'm going to add that to the favorite bar. There it is. I can click on that, go straight there every time. Rather than digging into MPP, I'm going to go straight down into the Document Center, and we're going to start working with files. Here I am in the Document Center. Here's my default document library. Here's my client directory structure. Here are my clients. So I'm going to speed through a few tasks that you've probably already seen. If I want to create folders in a directory structure, that's easy and pretty easy to work out. If I want to create new Word documents, again, that's pretty self-evident. Let's talk about something that maybe you guys haven't seen before. Let's say I'm a bit more of a power user. I want to dig into a directory structure, or I want to copy or move a bunch of files from one folder to another, or even copy an entire directory structure into SharePoint in one hit. Okay, how do we do that? All right, well, let's do it. First of all, I'm going to select the folder that I want. This is 007 Proprietary Limited. it's one of my clients, and then you'll notice this menu up the top here, which is always minimized. I'm going to drill down into this menu. You can see as soon as I click on it, I get a drop-down menu with heaps of functionality. This is what we're looking for over here, this great piece of functionality called Open with Explorer.
It's quite new, this, isn't it, Tristan? Open with Explorer.
It's been around for a little while, but it's a little bit buried. It's a little bit hard to find if you don't know where to look, and people just haven't been aware that this is here. And what's really cool about it is straight away I have my old Windows Explorer interface back. So, and you can see up here that I'm buried in the back end of Hub One SharePoint system. So this is my local Windows Explorer, and you can see my local directory structures on the side here. But I'm actually looking at a directory structure in Microsoft's cloud. And what's cool about that? Well, I can go in here and I can do all sorts of things that in ways that I'm familiar with. For example, I can double click on document, I can launch it, load it up in Word, I can create new directory structures.
So will that open it in Word desktop, or will it open in Word Online? Is that because you're using Open with Explorer? Does it open it differently?
If you're using the Open with Explorer functionality, again, which is launched just here on the toolbar in SharePoint, then as soon as you interact with any document, you're going to be launching the full version of Word. By default, if I'm in here and I click on the same file, where are we? Something else. By default, it's going to open up in Word Online, which is Microsoft's online Word application. It's great functionality. It's got most of the tools you need. But if I open it up from Open with Explorer, I get the full version of Microsoft Word straight away.
So let's take this back to an accounting firm, because most of our clients are accounting firms and so forth, and they're doing their work papers. So previously, what we would do is we'd say, set up your work papers in your OneDrive, because you need to work on them and move them around in the cloud and so forth. And what with Open with Explorer, with this functionality, we can either choose to do that, or we could even go in and say, let's open and create that at the first point in SharePoint, and then work on it. And when we do need to upload something to another program like Xero or Xero Work Papers, then we would just drag and drop that document into our local computer so we can save it up there. But I think the other day you did something which enabled us in Work Papers to bring the document straight over.
Well, look, what you get straight off the bat with Open with Explorer is the ability just to drag from your local computer into SharePoint, or from SharePoint, and that's an entire directory structure with subfolders and files, or from SharePoint, I can drag to the local desktop. Folders, well, there's nothing actually in that one, so it's not a great example. But folders and files, I can drag then to the desktop. There are some applications like Xero Work Papers where you need to upload files directly from the PC into Xero, and this is a great way to get them out of SharePoint and then up into the next cloud-based system like Xero Work Papers.
Yeah, I think in Xero Work Papers they had the ability to drag and drop, and we tested that, and it worked really well, didn't it? Remember, we were working on that. Whereas I think Xero itself, I know Xero itself, you need to go and drag and browse to a folder. So you can then work and have your work papers in SharePoint under a folder under the client's name in that area. So we're moving away from, whereas previously we said don't use folders, we're saying now probably you can start to use folders in SharePoint to control and manage a few things, and also because you're the ability to drag and drop folders and move those folders around now with Open with Explorer.
If you're a power user or you're a fan of the Windows Explorer interface, Open with Explorer is handy. It's great. It's easy navigation. I can click on clients up here, and straight away I'm one level up. I can dig down, copy, paste, open, move folders around, rename files, rename folders. There's a bunch of stuff that's not as intuitive in the web interface that you can do in in the Open with Explorer view. Again, just to show you where that is, if I want to work with a folder, highlight it, go to Library, launch Open with Explorer, and away it goes. And there's nothing wrong with just having that Open with Explorer window open in the background, and when you need to use it, jump in and do what you need to do.
The other thing that we did the other day was when we did that Open with Explorer, we actually saved that and we pinned it in our Explorer bar, so that it was really something that we use a lot of. So say, for example, you've got a favorite client that you work with, you can actually pin that SharePoint folder using Open with Explorer into Explorer. Is that, if I describe that properly?
Yes, there is a button if you're using Windows 10, I'm using Windows 10 Professional, you can see up the top here, there's a button called Pin to Quick Access. If I click that button, you'll see that folder, that client folder in SharePoint is suddenly listed under the Quick Access menu, and I can just click on it and away I go. But my recommendation is just to have that Open with Explorer window open in the background, and away you go. Launch it as you need it, and close it when you don't. So
what sort of things are we going to put into, if we're going to be doing this, when are we going to use OneDrive for Business then?
Well, let's jump on that at the very end.
Okay.
Because there's a few other methods in SharePoint team for interacting with the SharePoint team site. And again, this is what we're seeing here is a SharePoint team site. A team site is dedicated to collaboration. Literally, if you're a team, you want to be working in a team site. And the OneDrive site is a different kind of site altogether. They're both SharePoint sites, but they're for completely different purposes.
They are different animals. The team site's really there from a collaboration perspective. I'm going to be working with the rest of my people co-authoring documents on this site, whereas OneDrive is more for your personal information, and think of it as your map network drive, as your home drive. That's how I think of it. And within that, you can still share stuff, and there's a folder that says share with everybody, or just the other folders are not shared with everybody, and it's quite obvious on the OneDrive interface, OneDrive for Business interface, what is shared and what isn't shared.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. No, excellent, Christian. Tristan, what next?
I just want to point out before we move on that this Open with Explorer feature is only available in Internet Explorer. It won't work in Chrome or Opera or Edge or Firefox, but if you want to ensure 100% compatibility between your browser and your Office 365 services, you should probably be using Internet Explorer anyway, because the other browsers might only be 95% of the way there. And sometimes they'll just do funny things. If you are in a web browser that isn't Internet Explorer and you're interacting with SharePoint or some other Office 365 service and something doesn't work the way you expect it to, try doing that in Internet Explorer, and you might find that you've just hit one of those pieces of functionality that's only available to Internet Explorer.
Okay, that's very good advice, because people do use a lot of different browsers out there. So the top tip there, when interacting with the SharePoint environment, Internet Explorer is the way to go.
Absolutely. Other features that you might not see in the other browsers are the ability to drag from the desktop directly onto
like you do
SharePoint. Yeah, things like that. Handy little tools.
Excellent.
So that's method one of interacting with SharePoint, the web browser. Everyone's got one. Everyone knows how to use one. They're ubiquitous. They're everywhere, right? Method number two is all about the software that's installed on your computer. Specifically, Microsoft Office. And when I talk about Microsoft Office, I'm talking about the suite of applications that's installed on your local computer, specifically Microsoft Word, Outlook, PowerPoint, Excel, OneNote, Skype for Business. These applications are designed, built from the ground up to interact natively with Office 365. And they're great ways to interact with your data in SharePoint Online. So it's not just the web browser. There's lots of ways to get where you need to go.
Yeah, that's a good point, Tristan. I often think about Word, Excel, OneNote, and PowerPoint as being the client side of SharePoint. You know, you think about Skype for Business, you've got a Skype client, you're talking to a Skype server. You've got Outlook, you're talking to an email exchange server. Then Word, Excel, OneNote, and PowerPoint. Yep, you're using those tools to create content. If that content is for your business, it should be shared in a space where you could collaborate with other people. Enter SharePoint, enter team sites and document libraries. That's where we're going to share the stuff that we want to create for our organization. So I agree with you. I often use the analogy of using Word as the client side of SharePoint. And
let's have a look at how Word can talk directly to SharePoint Online. So I've got Microsoft Word open. This happens to be 2016, which isn't that different to 2013. 2010 can also interact with Office 365 quite happily, but ideally you're already on 2013 or 2016. This instance of Word knows who I am. I've already signed in as Word knows that I am Tristan Delaney and my Office 365 account is tristan@hub1.com, and it's gone out and found what services are available to me through Office 365. So Word knows that I have a OneDrive site. Word knows that I have a SharePoint site, and it knows how to talk to it. So, for example, let's say I want to create a new document, blah, 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 blah. If I go the old familiar file save as, which everyone should be familiar with, straight away Microsoft Word knows about OneDrive. It knows about my SharePoint site. It knows that the SharePoint site is the Hub One SharePoint site. If I click on here, I can see straight away the folders that I've accessed in the past, and also folders that I've specifically pinned to appear at the top of the list every time. These are the folders that I work with every day. So, for example, if I go File, Save As, click on Clients, here you can see the exact same directory structure as available through the web browser. There's my list of clients in the web browser. Here's my list of clients in Word. And it's easy as selecting the directory that you want, hit save. Word has natively saved that document directly into Office 365. And it works the other way as well. If I want to open a document from SharePoint, I can go File, Open. Straight away, Word knows that I have a SharePoint site. I can browse, select a folder that actually has a file. Here we go. Open up a Word document. Straight away, this is Microsoft Word talking directly to SharePoint Online. Exactly the same for Excel. Again, Excel knows who I am, and it knows how to save a document directly into SharePoint. It knows how to open a document directly from SharePoint. So just another way to interact with SharePoint.
Does it automatically check out those documents and so forth for those clients that we're running in, check out, and version control?
The version control all works in the background. That's transparent, seamless. That if you have check-in and check-out enabled on your SharePoint site, then Word will prompt you at the appropriate time to do that check-in and check-out process.
Okay, cool.
And I think that's something that confuses a couple of people who haven't worked with document management systems before. And I just want to make sure everybody's across that. When I check out a document, it essentially locks the document and disables collaboration with other people. Some people say, I checked out the document and now I can't co-author it. Yes, that is right. You checked out the document, it means you locked it for collaboration. Therefore, you cannot co-author that document with somebody else. So it's really a design decision that you make when building your SharePoint environment. Is this stuff going to be something that you want to check out and lock while one person is editing it, or is it something that you want to allow multiple people to edit it simultaneously? And when you set up your document library, you will decide then whether or not you want to enable or whether you want to force checkout.
That's a brilliant segue into the next section that Tristan's going to cover off with us. But just before we go on, I do note that we have gone a little bit over time today. So I think this is such an important topic that I'd really like to keep going with this for the next 10 to 15 minutes. If people do have to leave, that's fine. We will have a copy of the webcast on our website and distribute it out. So try and get it out to everybody. So
all right, can we say we'll run 10 minutes over? We'll finish at 11:40.
That's right.
Can we make a commitment to that?
We will make a commitment to that.
All right, let's power through.
Okay, let's shoot through the rest. Method 1 of interacting with SharePoint Online and working with your files, web browser. Method 2, the Microsoft Office Suite, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, talking directly to SharePoint, no double handling of files. Method 3 is the Hub 1 applications. The Hub 1 applications, Hub 1 guys, Hub 1 clients have seen them before. It's definitely a topic for a different presentation.
It needs its own webinar, doesn't it, really?
Needs its own webinar. So very, very quickly, we've got the Hub 1 Mail Manager, which sits inside of Outlook and allows you to file emails directly into the appropriate client folder in SharePoint. Very handy. We've got the Modern Practice Template Manager that creates templates and pulls the variables, the client information directly from Zero Practice Manager and saves that finalized document into the appropriate client folder. And we've got Scanned Document Manager, which takes scanned documents and files them directly into SharePoint. Does file renaming, lots of cool stuff. Definitely a topic for a different presentation. So that's the third method of interacting with SharePoint Online, is the Hub 1 suite of applications. Definitely deserves far more attention, but not today.
No, definitely. And the beauty of all of those is that it's doing exactly that. It's saving those documents, PDFs and emails straight into the client folder and speeding up that process.
And pulling all that data out of Zero Practice Manager.
Yep.
SharePoint knows who your clients are. That's SharePoint talking to Zero Practice Manager or whatever the practice management system is behind your business, pulling that information and feeding it into SharePoint to use it in so many different ways.
That's fantastic. Okay, so just to recap, Tristan,
yes.
Difference between a SharePoint team site versus a SharePoint OneDrive for Business site.
This is SharePoint team site. It's designed for collaboration. It's central storage. It's designed for people who work in teams. The default document library in the Hub 1 Document Center is designed to contain all your client data in one secure bucket, centralized, has multiple levels of redundancy. It's very rare that you're going to see SharePoint Online have any time offline. We can lose an entire data center and SharePoint Online will still keep on kicking. It's meant to be the source of truth for your client documentation, and this is where we want a Hub 1 client to live, in the document center, in the SharePoint team site. And then we've got this completely different type of site. So we've been living here in SharePoint. We're going to go over here to OneDrive.
Yes, still SharePoint though.
Still
but
SharePoint.
You would say OneDrive is more designed for all of your personal stuff, like your cat videos and stuff
Yep.
like that.
Performance reviews, maybe. I don't know.
Fantasy football,
Fantasy football stuff.
shopping lists.
It's your own personal chunk of SharePoint. It belongs to you by default. No one else can access it. Put whatever you want in there. No one's going to see it.
You can see over on the right-hand side, only you, shared with
only
David
me,
Hamilton,
me.
shared with Julian.
Yep.
So it's fairly clear as to whether or not somebody else has access to a particular document of yours.
Yeah, absolutely. It's transparent to a certain degree, but
Alright.
it's OneDrive is a great little tool. It's designed for one thing, in my opinion, and that's storage of personal files. It's a data silo. If there's something in here in OneDrive, then the company doesn't really have oversight of that piece of data.
Right.
It doesn't have management. It's not really in the system per se, as opposed to something that's living in the client directory structure. One of the scary things about OneDrive is if you delete someone's Office 365 user account, their OneDrive site gets deleted too. So whatever's in there gets flushed.
But I mean, that's the same with their mailbox, really. You're removing that user as an entity from the organization. So during my tenure at Microsoft, one of the things that they really made sure that we differentiated between was OneDrive linked to a Hotmail or an Outlook account versus OneDrive linked to your corporate account. And it was very clear from a compliance perspective that we were not allowed to store corporate secure information in our personal OneDrive. We had to store that in our OneDrive for Business. So I'd just like to make sure that everybody in the call is acutely aware that you could have two OneDrives, just to confuse you even more. If you're logging on with a Hotmail account and an Office 365 account, you could have a personal OneDrive and a OneDrive for Business.
There is no greater source of angst in my experience of running the help desk than OneDrive for Business. We've spent countless hours resolving issues that clients have experienced, and particularly when our clients have tried to use it for purposes other than that which it was intended for. And it's one of the pain points.
The other thing too is which I found is that I'll use it, and you don't look after your OneDrive account properly, and it fills up and it takes up space on your PC and all of those sort of things. It just uses up resources on that part. So you really need to manage it and look after it and move your documents when you've finished using and working on them if you need to. So it's designed for that as well. We haven't really covered off collaborating on documents in together. So would you maybe just want to cover that, Tristan, just quickly on that next slide? Because I don't think we'll just talk about it briefly. Time's not really allowing us to go into any detail. But I suppose the biggest thing is that co-authoring and working on documents. You touched on it a little bit, but maybe just go into a little bit more depth, and then we'll start to wind up the session.
Co-authoring is really cool. It's a little bit risky to delve into it without doing a bit of a deep dive, in as much as that there are a lot of variables involved. It's really powerful, but there are very specific combinations of software which allows it to work. It probably deserves a really good run in a separate presentation at a later date.
All right. We'll set up a presentation purely for the co-authoring. We have spoken about it before in some of the SharePoint sessions. We will definitely come back to that in one of the other sessions. Tristan, I just want to say thank you very much for your time today. For everybody on the call, we look at Office 365, but Tristan looks at it from literally thousands of people's environments, okay? He goes through and he'll see issues with it on an OneDrive on an iPhone versus different versions of Android versus different versions of Windows, interacting with multiple combinations of software. So he is at the coalface on a day-to-day basis, and his guidance is like the guru of 365. So what he says, take as gospel. As we're wrapping up, Trev, could you just go back one slide? I'd just like to draw everyone's attention to a slide, a video that is out on the internet, when to use what in Office 365. So really, Tristan and myself were discussing it this morning, but, should I use Skype or Yammer, or should I use SharePoint this or an Excel spreadsheet? Should I use OneDrive for Business or a SharePoint site? So there's a little video on Microsoft sites, which is channel9.msdn.com, and two guys, Richard and Kumar, ran this last year at a conference in the US. It's an hour and 20 minutes long. This is a commitment from you to watch this video. However, I find it to be a great little video, really giving you a matrix of when to use what tools in Office 365 for the best productivity. And that's really what we've tried to wrap up today in the last half an hour. So we're going to wrap up the call now, but I'd like to thank Tristan very much for his time today and his expertise and sharing his skill set with you. So thank you very much, Tristan. Over to you, Trev.
Just on the last slide, Tristan is good. Tristan's in control rather than jumping back and forth. Next week, again, we're going to continue on with this series every week at the same time. Share it around. We've had we almost got to 100 listeners today, which is absolutely amazing. So we're really wanting to drive this and get it out. So share this amongst anybody. It's not exclusive to Hub One clients. It's for everybody to come in and take advantage of. Next week we're going to jump into Skype for Business. So we're going to get into there and talk about Skype versus Skype for Business. What's the difference between each of them and so forth. And we're going to talk about the new SKU that's coming out, the E5 SKU that's going to come out, and what does it mean for you and maybe telephones and so forth like that. So jump in. We use Skype for Business for these presentations and every week, and it's about using it and taking it and really starting to work with it together. So that's it. Again, I'd like to also thank Tristan for coming on. I was very excited when he said he was going to do this and jump into OneDrive and OneDrive for Business and compare it to SharePoint. So thanks again, and thank you as well, Roland, for having your dulcet tones and managing the call with us.
Thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic day. Goodbye.
Goodbye.